"I sold your car." 4 words, delivered with such casual cruelty that at first I thought I'd misheard my son. "Andrew, what did you say?" My voice sounded strange in the empty kitchen, too high and thin against the background hum of the refrigerator Richard had fixed just 3 weeks before his heart gave out. "The Toyota, Mom. I sold it yesterday. Got $8,000 for it, which is pretty good for a 10-year-old car." The satisfaction in his voice made my stomach clench. "I've already put the money into an account I set up to manage your finances. You need to be practical now that Dad's gone." I gripped the counter to steady myself, staring at the faded wallpaper Richard and I had hung together when we first bought this small house 26 years ago. The Toyota had been Richard's pride, a reliable sedan he'd maintained meticulously, teaching me basic maintenance so I'd never be stranded or taken advantage of by unscrupulous mechanics. "But I need that car for work," I managed to say, trying to keep the panic from my voice. "The hospital is across town. There's no direct bus route." Andrew's sigh crackled through the phone, impatient and dismissive. "Mom, be realistic. You're 58. Should you even be working at your age? Besides, the insurance and maintenance would have been too expensive for you on your own." "On my own?" I repeated, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. Richard had been gone for exactly 17 days, and already my son was treating me like an incompetent child rather than a woman who had supported a family and worked full-time for nearly 40 years. "Look, I've researched the bus routes. It'll take you about an hour and 20 minutes each way with one transfer. Earlier start to your day, but the exercise will be good for you." He spoke with the brisk efficiency he used when closing sales deals. "I'll text you the details. Gotta run. Meeting in 5. The line went dead before I could respond. I stood motionless in my kitchen, still wearing my hospital scrubs after a 12-hour shift, surrounded by casserole dishes and sympathy cards that had arrived after Richard's funeral. The magnitude of what had just happened slowly sank in. My son had sold my only means of transportation without asking me, without even warning me, and he expected me to be grateful. I sank into a kitchen chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Richard would have known exactly what to say, how to handle Andrew's presumptuousness firmly, but without creating a family rift. Richard had always been the buffer between our son's increasingly materialistic outlook and my more traditional values. But Richard wasn't here anymore. The thought brought fresh grief washing over me, a wave so powerful I had to close my eyes against it. When I could breathe again, I reached for my phone to call Margaret, Richard's oldest friend and our family attorney. If anyone would know what to do, it would be Margaret. But my finger hovered over her contact information without pressing. What exactly would I say? That my grown son had sold my car without permission and I didn't know how to stand up to him? The humiliation burned hot in my chest. Instead, I set the phone down and walked to the window overlooking our modest driveway. The empty concrete rectangle where the Toyota had reliably sat for the past decade mocked me with its barrenness. Richard had always parked it at the perfect angle to make it easier for me to back out. The practical implications of Andrew's actions began to cascade through my mind. My shift at the hospital started at 7 a.m. To arrive on time via the bus route Andrew mentioned would mean leaving the house by 5:30 a.m. I'd return home after 8 p.m. on late shifts. In winter, both journeys would be in complete darkness. Then another realization hit me with stunning clarity. The car's title. Richard had been meticulous about paperwork. For our 30th anniversary, he had transferred the Toyota's title solely into my name. "One less thing to worry about if anything happens to me," he'd said at the time. Had Andrew even checked the vehicle's registration before selling it? Did he have any legal right to sell property that wasn't his? I walked quickly to the filing cabinet in the spare bedroom where Richard had kept all our important documents. The vehicle folder was missing. My hands began to shake as I searched more frantically through the neatly labeled sections: insurance, medical, house deed, warranties. The entire automotive section had been removed. Andrew must have taken the documents when he came by last week, ostensibly to help organize Dad's paperwork. I'd been grateful at the time, too overwhelmed with grief and exhaustion to question why he needed to take anything with him. I sank onto the edge of the bed, Richard's side still undisturbed, his reading glasses still on the nightstand. The magnitude of my son's betrayal expanded like a dark stain. This wasn't impulsive. This was calculated. He had deliberately taken the documents, sold a vehicle he had no right to sell, and had the audacity to frame it as helping me. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. Andrew had sent a complicated bus schedule with multiple transfers, not the single transfer he'd mentioned. The journey would actually take closer to 2 hours each way. The final line read, "The exercise and fresh air will be good for you. We need to schedule a time to go through Dad's tools in the garage too. I can probably get a decent price for them." His tools, Richard's beloved tools, collected over 40 years as a mechanic. The tools he had used to teach neighborhood kids basic car maintenance every summer. The tools that were extensions of his skilled, capable hands. Something shifted inside me then, grief transforming into a cold, clear anger I had never experienced before. Richard wouldn't have wanted me to suffer in silence. He would have expected me to stand up for myself. I picked up my phone again, but this time I didn't hesitate. "Margaret," I said when she answered, "I need your help. And I need to know if there's any way to get into the Toyota's glove compartment without having the car." Margaret arrived at my house 40 minutes later, her silver hair pulled back in its usual no-nonsense bun, a leather portfolio tucked under one arm. At 72, she still practiced law part-time, specializing in elder rights and estate planning. She and Richard had been friends since high school, bonding over a shared love of classic cars and justice in equal measure. "He did what?" she demanded after I explained the situation, her voice rising with indignation. She paced my small living room, the floorboards creaking beneath her sensible shoes. "Andrew sold your car without permission? Without even consulting you?" "He says he put the money in an account he set up for me," I explained, hearing how pathetic it sounded, even as the words left my mouth. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "An account you don't control, I'm guessing? One he has access to?" I nodded, shame warming my cheeks. When had I become this person? This doormat that my own son felt comfortable walking all over? Evelyn. Margaret sat beside me on the sofa, taking my hands in hers. "This isn't just inappropriate. It's illegal. The Toyota was in your name, not his. He had no legal right to sell it. He took all the car documents from Richard's filing cabinet," I said. "I think that's why I needed to get into the glove compartment. Richard always kept duplicates of important papers there." A small smile played at the corners of Margaret's mouth. Richard was always prepared for every contingency. "It drove me crazy in court, but it was what made him such a good mechanic." She squeezed my hands. "But there's something else you should know, Evelyn. Something Richard asked me not to tell you until it became necessary." I felt a chill run through me, despite the warm spring evening. "What is it?" "Richard came to see me about 3 months ago. He'd been having some chest pains." "What?" I interrupted, fresh grief and guilt washing over me. "He never told me." "He didn't want to worry you," Margaret said gently. "You know how he was, always protecting everyone else. The doctor had given him some warnings about his heart, and Richard, he wanted to make sure everything was in order, just in case." She opened her portfolio and removed a sealed envelope with my name written on it in Richard's familiar, precise handwriting. "He asked me to give you this if anything happened to him, and if Andrew started behaving exactly as he is now." My hands trembled as I took the envelope. It felt substantial, containing more than just a letter. "Before you open that," Margaret continued, "we need to focus on getting your car back. Do you know who Andrew sold it to?" I shook my head. "He didn't say, just that he got $8,000 for it." Margaret pulled out her phone. "What's the license plate number?" I recited it from memory. Richard had insisted I always know our plate numbers, VIN, and insurance details. Margaret typed rapidly, then looked up with a triumphant smile. "I still have friends at the DMV. Let me make a call." While she stepped into the kitchen to use her phone, I sat holding Richard's envelope, running my fingers over the neat letters of my name. Even now, nearly 3 weeks after his death, discovering something new from him felt like a lifeline thrown across the void that separated us. Margaret returned, looking pleased. "The car hasn't been re-registered yet. Whoever bought it hasn't completed the paperwork. That gives us an advantage." She sat beside me again. "Now, about that glove compartment. What exactly do you think is in there?" "I'm not sure," I admitted, but Richard was methodical about backups. He always said the glove compartment was the heart of the car's history. "Well, we're going to get that car back," Margaret declared with the confidence that had made her such a formidable attorney. "But first, I think you should read what Richard wanted you to know." With a deep breath, I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and what appeared to be a small safe deposit box key. "My dearest Evelyn, If you're reading this, two things have happened. I'm no longer with you, and Andrew has started making decisions he has no right to make. I've known for some time that our son has developed values very different from ours. While we raised him to respect people regardless of their wealth or status, he's chosen to measure worth only in dollars and appearances. I've prepared for this possibility. The key enclosed opens safe deposit box U-247 at First National on Broadway. Inside, you'll find everything you need to understand what I've been building for us over the past 30 years. But there's something even more important in the Toyota's glove compartment, something Andrew must never find. It contains proof of everything, plus an envelope you'll need to take to Margaret immediately. I'm sorry I kept secrets from you, my love. I wanted to protect you from worrying, and I wanted to be sure everything was perfectly in place before I shared it all. I thought I had more time. Know that every decision I made was out of love for you, and hope for Andrew to eventually become the man we raised him to be, not the man he currently is. All my love, always, Richard. I looked up at Margaret, tears blurring my vision. What was he building for us? What secrets? Margaret's expression was gentle but determined. I think we need to get that car back to find out, and I have an idea how to do it. She pulled out her phone again. First, I'm going to report the vehicle as stolen, which legally it was. Then I'm calling my grandson. He works at the DMV and can tell us exactly who tried to register the title transfer. Won't Andrew get in trouble? Despite everything, he was still my son. Margaret gave me a level look. Evelyn, Richard was my best friend for over 50 years. He spent his entire life making sure you were taken care of. If Andrew has interfered with that, then yes, he deserves whatever consequences come his way. As Margaret made her calls, I reread Richard's letter, my fingers tracing his handwriting, hearing his voice in every carefully chosen word. Whatever was in that glove compartment, whatever Richard had been building for us, it was clearly something he felt would protect me after he was gone, and Andrew had unknowingly sold it along with the car. By the time Margaret finished her calls, night had fallen. She looked satisfied as she returned to the living room. Good news. The car was sold to a dentist in Boulder, Dr. Paul Mercer. He bought it for his daughter as a college graduation present. It's still sitting in his garage. They won't pick it up until the weekend. She sat beside me, looking more energized than I'd seen her since Richard's funeral. We're going to Boulder first thing tomorrow morning. I've already left a message with Dr. Mercer explaining the situation. What did you tell him? The truth. That your recently widowed status was exploited by someone who illegally sold your vehicle without permission? She patted my hand. Don't worry. I didn't throw Andrew under the bus completely. I simply explained that a family member exceeded their authority during a time of grief. I nodded, grateful for her tact, even as I struggled with the painful reality of my son's betrayal. Now, Margaret continued, get some rest. Tomorrow we retrieve your car and find out what Richard was protecting in that glove compartment. As she left, I stood in the doorway watching her headlights disappear down the street. For the first time since Richard's death, I felt something besides grief stirring inside me. A quiet determination, a spark of the strength he had always seen in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. Whatever was in that glove compartment, I knew one thing for certain. Richard had left me the tools to stand on my own against whatever came next, even if that whatever turned out to be my own son. The drive to Boulder the next morning felt surreal. Margaret insisted on driving, saying I looked too exhausted to be behind the wheel. I couldn't argue. I'd barely slept, my mind racing with questions about what Richard could have hidden in the Toyota's glove compartment that was so important. Did Richard ever mention investments to you? Margaret asked as we left Denver behind, the Rocky Mountains rising majestically before us. Not really, I replied, watching the familiar landscape roll by. He had his pension from the auto shop, and we had some modest savings. He always handled our finances. I felt a flush of embarrassment at this admission. How little I'd paid attention to our financial matters, content to let Richard manage everything. Margaret nodded thoughtfully. Richard was always more shrewd than people gave him credit for. Mechanics understand systems, how small parts work together to create something powerful. He applied that thinking to everything. The suburban sprawl of Denver gradually gave way to the more open approach to Boulder. We pulled up to an impressive house in a well-established neighborhood, the kind of place that spoke of old money and quiet prosperity. Dr. Mercer was waiting for us in his driveway, a tall man with kind eyes and a concerned expression. Beside him stood a young woman I assumed was his daughter, looking uncomfortable in the morning sunlight. "Mrs. Winters," he greeted me, extending his hand. "I'm so sorry about this situation. Had I known the circumstances of the sale, I never would have purchased the vehicle." "Thank you for understanding," I replied, shaking his hand. "I hope this hasn't caused too much inconvenience." "Not at all," he assured me, though his daughter's expression suggested otherwise. Amber was excited about the car, but clearly this takes precedence. "I've brought the paperwork confirming Mrs. Winters' legal ownership," Margaret interjected, all business as she handed him a folder. "And a cashier's check for the full amount you paid." Dr. Mercer glanced at the documents briefly, then shook his head. "Keep the money, Mrs. Winters. This was an illegal sale. I couldn't in good conscience accept payment." "Dad!" his daughter protested, but fell silent at his stern look. "Consider it my contribution to setting things right," he continued. "I lost my wife 3 years ago. I understand how vulnerable that time can be." His kindness brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I managed. "The car's in the garage," he said, leading us around the side of the house. I was impressed by its condition. "Whoever maintained it did an exceptional job." "My husband," I said softly. "He was a mechanic." Dr. Mercer nodded appreciatively as he opened the garage door. And there it was, our Toyota, looking exactly as it had when it sat in our driveway for all those years. The sight of it, this tangible connection to Richard, made my heart clench. "The keys," Dr. Mercer said, handing them to me. "Everything should be as it was when I purchased it." I thanked him again, and after a few more formalities guided by Margaret's legal expertise, we were in the Toyota heading back toward Denver. I sat in the driver's seat, breathing in the familiar scent that still held traces of Richard's aftershave. "Are you going to open it?" Margaret asked, nodding toward the glove compartment. My hands trembled slightly as I pressed the button. The compartment opened smoothly, revealing several neatly organized items: the car's manual, registration documents, and a sealed manila envelope with, "For Evelyn, urgent," written across it in Richard's handwriting. "Should I?" I hesitated, glancing at the road ahead. "Pull over," Margaret suggested. "Whatever's in there, you'll want to give it your full attention." I found a scenic overlook just outside Boulder and parked, the mountains providing a majestic backdrop to this moment of truth. With a deep breath, I opened the envelope. Inside was a USB drive, a letter, and several legal documents. I unfolded the letter first. "Evelyn, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and something has happened that made you need to retrieve these documents urgently. I'm guessing it involves Andrew. He's been showing concerning signs for years now, becoming more focused on appearances and status than the values we tried to teach him." The enclosed USB drive contains complete records of what I'm about to explain. The short version is this. For the past 30 years, I've been investing in real estate throughout Denver. What began as a small opportunity with my first bonus at the auto shop has grown into something substantial. Very substantial. The properties are all held by Winter Mechanics LLC, a company registered solely in your name, though I've managed it. The portfolio currently includes 17 residential properties and 4 commercial buildings, including the Aspen Heights luxury apartments. I gasped, looking up at Margaret. "Aspen Heights? That's where Andrew lives." She nodded, unsurprised. "Keep reading." "Yes, Evelyn, our son has been paying $2,800 monthly rent to a company you own without realizing it. I never told him because I wanted him to make his own way, not rely on family connections for special treatment. The total portfolio value as of last month was approximately $4.7 million, with monthly income of $78,000 after expenses and management fees. All of this is yours. Everything is already in your name legally. My attorney Margaret has all the necessary documentation at her office, but I kept these backups in case Andrew tried to interfere after my death. I've seen how he looks at the house, at your car, at my tools, calculating their value rather than their meaning. The management company that handles day-to-day operations is Reliable Properties. Ask for Susan Chen. She's expecting your call if something happens to me. The password for the USB drive is Evelyn9964 Winter. I'm sorry I kept this from you. I wanted to surprise you when I finally retired next year. We were going to travel, donate to those mechanics scholarships we always talked about, live the life we'd worked so hard for. Remember how strong you are, my love, how capable. You've always been the heart of our family, And now you have the resources to live